Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something pretty special today. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Ah, meditations.
Or at least excerpts from it, along with some background stuff, to put it all in context.
Yeah.
We're going to explore Marcus Aurelius.
Who was he?
Yeah, who he was, what he believed, and how all of that comes through in his writing.
How it kind of comes through in his life as, well, both emperor and philosopher.
Exactly. It's like getting a glimpse into the mind of one of history's most fascinating figures.
It's interesting because meditations is kind of like reading someone's diary.
Right.
And that's what makes it so interesting. It wasn't really written for, like, an audience.
Oh, so it's super raw and honest?
Very raw, yeah. You really see him grappling with his own flaws and applying Stoicism to his actual problems.
Wow. So not just talking the talk.
No, not preaching from some ivory tower or anything.
Okay, so before we get too deep into Stoicism and everything, let's just start with, who was this guy? Marcus Aurelius. Why should we care?
So imagine being the emperor of Rome.
Oh, wow.
One of the most powerful people in the world, right?
Yeah.
And it's a time of constant crisis. Wars, plagues, rebellions.
This sounds fun.
You name it. And Marcus Aurelius had to deal with all of it. But amidst all this chaos, he's finding time to reflect, think about life, virtue, how to be a good person.
Wow.
That's why he's called the philosopher king, right? His reign was from 161 to 180 A.D. And his writings, they offer this really unique perspective on leadership, responsibility, how to live a good life.
So are the meditations basically like his self-help book?
In a way, yeah, I guess you could say that. It's like a collection of like his personal notes, quotes, reflections, all written in Greek.
Okay.
But it's not some like polished, guidebook or anything.
Right.
It's very raw, it's unfiltered, just full of his inner thoughts and struggles. And what's fascinating is it was never meant for publication, so it's really this intimate window into his mind.
Right, like you said, a diary. And that makes it even more interesting because he was facing some pretty serious challenges, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I've been reading, it wasn't an exaggeration, the wars, the plagues, the rebellions.
Nails, not at all. You got to remember, the Roman Empire was huge. Ruling it was no easy task. There were constant threats from, barbarian tribes along the borders, internal power struggles, the economy was unstable, and then you throw in a devastating plague.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
It's no wonder he needed a little philosophical guidance.
And that's where Stoicism comes in, right?
Right.
So for those of us who aren't ancient Roman emperors, can you give us a crash course on what Stoicism actually is?
Well, Stoicism, in a nutshell, is about recognizing that we can't control everything that happens to us, but we can control how we react to things. So it emphasizes virtue, reason, and living in accordance with nature. Stoics believe the universe is governed by this rational force called the logos, and everything happens for a reason. So instead of getting upset over things you can't change, you focus on what you can control, your own thoughts and actions.
Okay, so it's about taking responsibility for your inner state, even when the world around you is kind of crazy.
Exactly.
I mean, I think we can all relate to that.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether it's a global pandemic or just a really bad day at work, it's so easy to get overwhelmed by the things we can't control.
It really is. And that's what makes Stoicism so relevant even today.
Yeah.
It gives you a framework for dealing with adversity, for finding peace, even when times are tough. It's about training your mind to focus on what truly matters: virtue, wisdom, living a life in harmony with nature.
So it seems like Marcus Aurelius really took this to heart, not just as some philosophy, but as like a way of life.
Yeah.
And in book 1 of Meditations, he starts off by listing all these people who influenced him.
A great list.
What struck me was it wasn't just about like their achievements or their power. He was really grateful for specific lessons, specific traits he learned from each of these people.
Yeah, and you see that. It's so revealing because he's not just name-dropping philosophers or, powerful people.
Right.
He's acknowledging the impact that these people had on his character, his values. For example, he admired his adopted father, Emperor Antoninus Pius, not just for being a good emperor, but for things like his compassion.
Compassion, yeah.
His unwavering adherence to decisions, once they were made.
Wow.
And indifference to superficial honors.
That's a good one.
Right.
Yeah.
He even thanks his teacher Sextus
Yeah.
for demonstrating gravity without errors.
Oh, I like that.
Which, honestly, I think we could all use a bit more of these days.
Totally.
It's amazing. It's fascinating how he picks these small details, right?
Yeah.
It really shows you what he valued, what he wanted to be like. And remember, he's writing this for himself, not for the public or anything.
Yeah.
It's really like a window into his soul, his own personal blueprint for being a good person, a good leader.
And it's all rooted in Stoicism. Now, you mentioned earlier living in accordance with nature.
Right. Yeah.
Can you unpack that a bit? Because it feels like that can mean so many different things.
Well, for the Stoics, living in accordance with nature meant aligning yourself with the rational order of the universe, understanding the laws of nature, like both the physical and moral laws,
Okay.
and acting in a way that fits with those laws.
So it's not just about going for a hike in the woods.
Well, no, not exactly. It's more about recognizing we're part of something bigger than ourselves,
Oh, okay.
that we're connected to all things.
Mm.
It's about accepting what we can't control, fulfilling our duties to others, and striving to live a virtuous life.
That sounds like a tall order.
It is.
So how did Marcus Aurelius actually apply all of this to his life as emperor?
Yeah.
I mean, making decisions that affect a whole empire must have been incredibly stressful.
For Marcus Aurelius, Stoicism was not just a philosophy. It was a practical guide for dealing with the challenges of leadership. And one of the key things he applied was the 3 disciplines:
Okay, the 3 disciplines. What are those?
perception, action, and will.
All right, let's break this down a bit. What does he mean by discipline of perception?
So it's about training yourself to see things objectively. Don't let your emotions cloud your judgment. For example, imagine your house is burning down.
Okay, yeah.
That's an event.
It's a fact.
It's a fact, right? It's not inherently a tragedy. The tragedy is letting that event control your emotions,
Getting lost in it.
getting lost in despair or anger. Stoics believed you could actually choose how to perceive even the most difficult situations.
So it's about reframing how we see the world.
Yeah.
Choosing to focus on what we can control and not getting stuck on what we can't.
Exactly. And that leads to the discipline of action. This is about focusing on what we owe to other people, contributing to the common good. Stoics believed we're social creatures,
Right.
meant to work together. And Marcus Aurelius really took his responsibility to the Roman people very, very seriously.
Makes sense. As emperor, you can't really just wallow in your feelings.
Right.
You've got decisions to make, actions to take.
Exactly. And that leads us to the discipline of will. Accepting whatever happens, good or bad, and focusing on your inner response to it. Embrace what happens, even if it seems unpleasant, because it's all part of that bigger cosmic order.
So he's saying don't fight reality, accept it.
Yeah.
And focus on how you respond to it internally. That's pretty profound. And it seems very applicable to modern life.
It is, very much so. And, you see this in meditations. He actually writes, begin each day by telling yourself, today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness.
Wow, okay. Not the most positive affirmation I've ever heard.
Not exactly, no.
But there's some honesty in there.
Well, it's a very honest. He's acknowledging that people are flawed. We all have our bad days.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not letting that get him down.
Right.
He's using it as a reminder to be patient, to be compassionate, understanding.
It's almost like he's saying, all right, world, hit me with your best shot. I'm ready.
Exactly. He's mentally preparing himself for those challenges. And that's key to Stoicism.
Okay.
Facing the negative, not ignoring it, but choosing how you respond to it.
Yeah.
One of the things that really strikes me as we kind of go through meditations is how much emphasis Marcus Aurelius puts on self-awareness.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's constantly looking at his own thoughts and motivations and actions, always trying to find ways to be better.
It's pretty refreshing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because so many leaders today try to project this image of perfection.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But Marcus Aurelius, he's willing to be vulnerable. He's willing to admit he's not perfect.
Yeah, he's human.
There's even a passage in Book 1 where he's thanking the gods that he didn't lose his temper with people he was close to.
Oh, wow.
Even though he really wanted to.
He had it in him.
He says, although I had it in me to do that and I might have easily... Wow.
It takes a lot of humility to admit something like that.
It really does. And
Yeah.
it reminds us that even someone in his position with all the power and all the privilege you could imagine,
Right.
he still struggled with the same human weaknesses that we all do.
Yeah.
He wasn't some kind of stoic superhero or anything.
Right.
He was just a regular person working hard to be better.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes meditation so relatable.
Totally.
We see ourselves in his struggles, in his goals.
Yeah, absolutely. He's like a friend sharing his diary with us.
Right.
Not some like distant historical figure preaching at us.
Exactly.
Speaking of those journal entries, there's this quote from book 2 that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
He says, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly."
Okay. Not exactly a positive affirmation to start your day.
Not really?
But, think about the wisdom there.
Okay, yeah.
He's not trying to, sugarcoat reality, is he?
He's acknowledging that people are flawed.
Yeah.
We all have bad days, but he's not letting that bring him down.
No.
Instead, he's using it as a reminder to be patient, to be kind, to be understanding.
It's like he's saying, okay, world, bring it on. I can handle it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting himself mentally ready for those challenges.
Right.
And that's such a big part of Stoicism.
Okay.
Facing the negative head on,
Yeah.
Not pretending it doesn't exist, but having the strength to deal with it.
And he goes on to say that people act this way because they can't tell good from evil. It's almost like he's giving them an excuse for their bad behavior.
I wouldn't say he's excusing it, but I think he's trying to understand it.
Okay.
He's saying that people often act badly because they don't have wisdom. They're driven by their emotions instead of logic and reason.
Oh, yeah.
And haven't we all been there at some point?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Done things we regret when we weren't thinking clearly.
Sure. But it's still hard to be compassionate in those moments.
It is.
When you're the one dealing with someone's bad behavior.
It is. And that's where that discipline of perception comes in.
Right.
Remember, it's about seeing things objectively, realizing that the other person's behavior is really about them.
Okay.
It's not a personal attack on you.
So don't take it personally.
Exactly. Separate the person from their actions.
Right.
What they do might affect you, but you don't have to let it control your emotions.
Right.
You have the power to choose how you react.
It's like that saying, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's you who suffers when you hold on to that anger.
You do. And here's something really important.
Okay.
Marcus Aurelius isn't just talking about being patient with other people.
Oh, what do you mean?
He's also talking about being patient with ourselves.
Oh, okay. How so?
Well, he recognized that we're all works in progress,
Yeah.
We're all going to make mistakes. We're going to fall short of our ideals. And he's encouraging us to be kind to ourselves, to not beat ourselves up when we mess up.
There's that quote from book 4. When jarred unavoidably by circumstances, revert at once to yourself and don't lose the rhythm more than you can help. You'll have a better grasp of the harmony if you keep on going back to it.
That's a great one.
It's like he's saying, don't get discouraged when you stumble. Just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get back on track.
Yeah, it's such a good reminder, especially these days when we're constantly told we need to be perfect.
Right.
That we need to be successful no matter what.
It's easy to get caught up in all that.
It is.
Yeah.
And forget to just be kind to ourselves.
Exactly. But Stoicism isn't about being perfect, is it?
No, it's not. It's about striving to be the best we can be,
Mm-hmm.
but also accepting that we have limits, that we're human.
Right.
Recognizing that we're all flawed, imperfect beings.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we can't live meaningful lives.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
And it ties back to that idea of focusing on what we can control.
Right.
Which is our own inner state.
Our thoughts, our reactions.
We can't control what other people do or say.
No, we can't.
But we can choose how we respond.
We can choose to react with anger or resentment, or we can choose compassion and understanding.
And it's in those moments of choice that we really define who we are.
That's where our true character shows.
It's amazing how these ideas from an ancient Roman emperor can still be so relevant today.
I know, it's incredible.
You realize that human nature hasn't really changed that much in thousands of years.
No, we're still dealing with the same questions, the same challenges.
And it's not just about the big existential stuff either.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Stoicism can also help us with the everyday stresses and annoyances of life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What are some things that drive you crazy?
Oh, man. Let me tell you, traffic jams, long lines at the grocery store, that one coworker who's always in a bad mood.
Oh, yeah. I know the type.
They might seem small, but they can really get to you.
They can really get under your skin if you let them.
Yeah, I think I've aged like 5 years just from sitting in traffic.
Oh, I hear ya. So how can Stoicism help us in those situations?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, first, remember that discipline of perception.
Okay.
See things for what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Don't add your own emotional baggage to it.
Right.
So instead of getting all worked up about that traffic jam,
Yeah.
just recognize it for what it is.
A temporary inconvenience.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a personal attack, and it's not going to ruin your whole day unless you let it.
Easier said than done when you're already running late.
I know. I know.
Mhm.
But that's where the discipline of will comes in.
Okay.
Except that you can't control the traffic,
Right.
but you can control your reaction.
Mm.
Choose to be patient, maybe listen to some music or use the time to make some phone calls.
It's about finding that silver lining, isn't it?
It is.
Like turning the situation around so you don't feel so powerless.
Exactly.
Huh.
And the same goes for that annoying coworker.
Yeah.
You can't control their behavior,
Nope.
but you can control your response. You can choose to engage with them in a positive way.
Mhm.
Maybe try to understand where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can just disengage completely and not let their bad vibes affect you.
So it's about setting boundaries, protecting your own peace.
That's it. And it's not about being passive or letting people walk all over you.
Right.
It's about choosing your battles carefully.
Oh.
Sometimes the best thing you can do is just walk away.
It's like taking back your power.
Exactly. You're not letting those external things control your emotions.
That's one of the coolest things about Stoicism.
Yeah.
It teaches us to take responsibility for our own happiness,
Right.
our own well-being.
Not being a victim of circumstances.
Exactly. We're not at the mercy of external events or what other people think.
We have more control than we realize.
That's a really powerful message, especially in today's world where it's so easy to feel overwhelmed and out of control.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. And, another thing Marcus Aurelius emphasized was this idea of living in accordance with nature.
Right. That comes up a lot in meditations.
It does.
But what does he actually mean by nature?
That's a good question.
It seems kind of vague.
It is a broad concept. It's been interpreted in different ways over the centuries.
Right.
But for the Stoics, nature referred to the rational order of the universe.
Okay.
The underlying principle that governs everything.
Everything.
From the stars to human behavior.
Wow.
It's about recognizing that we're all connected, part of something bigger than ourselves.
So it's not just about recycling and composting.
Well, it's more than that. It's about understanding the laws of nature,
Okay.
both the physical and the moral laws,
Mm-hmm.
and aligning our actions with those laws,
Okay.
accepting what we can't control, fulfilling our duties to others, striving to live a good life.
Okay, that makes sense. But how did Marcus Aurelius actually apply this as emperor?
That's the question, isn't it?
I mean, ruling an empire and living in accordance with nature seem kind of tough to do at the same time.
Well, for him, it was about finding a balance,
Okay.
balancing his philosophical ideals with the practical realities of being emperor. It meant making tough choices,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes even going to war,
Yeah.
but always trying to act with justice, wisdom, and compassion.
He recognized that he was part of a bigger system.
He did.
His actions had consequences for everyone in the empire.
They did. It's like he was trying to bring order to a world that often felt chaotic and unpredictable.
I liked that. It's like he was trying to create harmony.
Exactly. And that's what makes his writing so fascinating. We see him thinking about these big questions,
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to be a good person and a good leader in a really challenging world.
And he does it all with so much honesty and vulnerability.
He does.
It's inspiring to see someone in his position wrestling with these issues so openly.
I agree. And that's why Meditations is still so powerful today.
Yeah.
It gives us a guide for living a meaningful life, even when things feel confusing and overwhelming.
It reminds us that we all have the power to choose how we respond to life's challenges, to find peace and purpose, even in the middle of all the chaos.
And, there's another really important part of Stoicism that Marcus Aurelius focused on.
Oh, what's that?
Memento mori.
Memento mori. That's Latin for remember you will die, right?
That's right.
Not the most cheerful thought,
Not exactly.
but I've heard it can be a powerful motivator.
It can. The Stoics believed that thinking about our own mortality was essential for living a good life.
Really?
It helped them put things in perspective,
Okay.
figure out what was really important, and make the most of their time.
It's like that saying, live each day as if it were your last.
Right. But it's easy to get caught up in the morbid side of things with that kind of thinking.
Yeah, definitely. How do you avoid that trap?
Well, memento mori isn't about being morbid or reckless.
Okay.
It's about recognizing how precious life is,
Mm-hmm.
that our time is limited,
Right.
and using that knowledge to live more intentionally.
So how do we actually do that? Do we need to start wearing skull rings and sleeping in coffins?
No, nothing that drastic. It's more about a shift in perspective. Just ask yourself some questions.
Like what?
Like if you knew you only had a year left to live, how would you spend your time?
Hmm.
What would be your priorities? What would you let go of?
Those are big questions.
They are. But they can really make you think.
Yeah.
They make you confront your values and help you see what really matters.
It's about not wasting time on things that don't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not about being afraid of death.
No, yeah.
It's about embracing life, recognizing that death is a natural part of the cycle,
Right.
something to accept calmly.
Marcus Aurelius wrote a lot about death in Meditations, didn't he?
He did. He thought about how it's unavoidable that it comes for everyone and how it's ultimately insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
There's a line where he says, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly."
That's a good one.
That's powerful. It's like he's saying, don't dwell on the past.
Yeah.
Don't waste energy on regrets or what-ifs. Just focus on the now, on living the rest of your life to the fullest.
That's exactly it. It's a call to action, a reminder that we have the power to choose how we respond to life.
Even in the face of our own mortality.
Even then, that's a message that goes beyond time and culture.
It's something we can all relate to.
It is. It's a message that can inspire us all.
No matter who we are or what we're going through.
Exactly. And, as we've been talking about Marcus Aurelius and his meditations, it's important to remember that he wasn't just some philosopher writing in isolation.
He was out there in the world dealing with real problems.
Yeah, he was an emperor making decisions that affected millions of people.
Right, so it wasn't all just abstract philosophical ideas. He
Yeah.
was trying to actually live this stuff out in a really practical way.
Exactly. And you see that tension in Meditations between his ideals and the reality of leading an empire.
So where do you see that most?
Well, take his views on war, for example. As a Stoic, Marcus Aurelius believed in peace and harmony.
Okay.
He saw war as a last resort, something to avoid if at all possible.
Yeah. But as emperor, he couldn't just ignore threats to Rome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He had a responsibility to protect his people, to defend the empire. And sometimes that meant going to war.
So how did he square that with his Stoic beliefs? It seems like a contradiction.
It is, and you see him struggling with this in Meditations. He didn't celebrate war or enjoy conquest. He saw it as a necessary evil, something to be endured with courage and discipline.
So it's almost like he was trying to be a Stoic warrior.
That's a good way to put it. He wanted to lead with honor and justice, even in the midst of violence and chaos.
And you see that in his writing, he talks about the importance of controlling your emotions.
Yes, not giving in to anger or hatred even towards your enemies.
Which is really hard to do in war.
It is, but that's the Stoic ideal, to remain calm and rational even in the most difficult situations.
He also talks about doing your duty even when it's hard.
Yes, fulfilling your obligations even when you don't want to. That's a key part of Stoicism. It's not about running away from the world's problems. It's about engaging with them in a responsible way.
So it's not just about self-improvement, it's about making the world a better place.
Exactly. It's about contributing to the common good.
Yeah.
And that brings up another example of the tension Marcus Aurelius faced. As a Stoic, he believed in the equality of all people.
Okay.
He saw himself as a citizen of the world, not just the ruler of Rome.
But as emperor, he was at the top of a very unequal society.
That's right. And he had to work within that system. He could just suddenly change everything.
But he could try to rule with fairness and compassion.
Exactly. And there's evidence that he did try to reform the empire, make it more just and equitable for everyone.
So even though he couldn't live out his ideals perfectly, he still tried to make a difference.
Yes, he wasn't perfect, but he seems to have genuinely strived to live up to his Stoic principles.
And that's a good lesson for all of us. We can't always control our circumstances,
Right.
but we can control our choices and our actions.
Exactly. That's one of the most powerful takeaways from Meditations. It's not about living a life without problems or challenges. It's about facing them with courage, wisdom, and integrity.
It's really amazing to think about an emperor dealing with so much pressure and finding comfort and guidance in these ideas.
It is. It shows how timeless and universal these principles are. They can help anyone no matter what their situation is.
Well, this has been a fascinating look into the life and philosophy of Marcus Aurelius.
It really has. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have, from his personal struggles to his leadership and his impact on history.
And I hope it's inspired you to learn more about him and explore meditations for yourself.
Absolutely. And to our listeners out there, if you're looking for wisdom guidance and a new way of looking at life's challenges, pick up a copy of Meditations. You might be surprised at how much it speaks to you, even today.
And as Marcus Aurelius wrote, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts.
So choose them wisely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Marcus Aurelius and Stoicism. We'll see you next time.